Think about your life as in waves, especially in midlife, in between spaces that leads to gaps and then to traps. So you're in your in between space and you're really not sure where you're going to go with this, how is this going to go. But the more you doubt yourself, the more you question, the more you try to perfect it, the less momentum you have.
Welcome to Project Loving Myself, the podcast where we dive deep into the messy, beautiful journey of self-discovery, self-love, and healing. I'm your host, Sanaya Gurnamal, relationship reinvention coach and love alchemist. The most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. Let's start this journey together on Project Loving Myself. Welcome back to Project Loving Myself, the space where we do self-love from the inside out. Have you ever felt like what used to work for you just doesn't anymore? The routines, the habits, even the way you used to stay consistent. Now it feels harder. So you try to push more, be more disciplined. But instead of moving forward, you feel stuck. And it's frustrating because you know what to do. So you start to wonder, what's wrong with me? But what if nothing is wrong? What if you've simply outgrown the version of yourself those routines were built for? Because not every season of your life is meant to look the same. Joining me today is Heike Yates, midlife fitness expert, author, and creator of the Spark Framework. She helps women navigate those in-between seasons when what used to work no longer fits and the old ways don't land the same. Her work is about rebuilding trust and creating consistency that actually works for your life right now. Heike, I'm so glad we're having this conversation.
Sanaya, this is so exciting. I can't wait to dive in for our conversation of all the self-love that we can find along the way.
Absolutely. And it is such an important topic. Now, Heike, when someone says, what used to work for me doesn't anymore, what's really happening there?
You know, we're looking at the outdated ways we're doing things like it always used to work. It used to work 10 years ago. And I know the last time I did this, I had the results I wanted. It was easy. It was doable. But now it doesn't work anymore. I'm doing the same steps, but somehow I don't get the results that I did before. And so we're looking at what has worked and now apply it to where we are now. And as we're going through midlife, a lot of things change and our strategies have to change with us. And many women don't even think about that. This would be something to consider. They're changing everything in their life, but their health and fitness, they don't think about that.
You know, Heike, I have a client and she told me, Sanaya, when I was in college, when I lived in New York City and I was working there, life was so easy. Whatever I wanted, whether it was a relationship, whether it was the job, whether it was with friends, like everything was just easy. I would always get what I want. But at some point, you know, things change and it feels like life has been a struggle ever since. Nothing seems to work the way I wanted to. Is that something you hear and is that something you're addressing in what you're talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, when we're looking back, what used to work and things were easy. But we were also in a different time in our lives and in different priorities and different ways of doing things and also different stress levels. When I think back, when I was in my 20s, I didn't have children. I didn't have to worry about a job. I had no care in the world other than caring for myself and taking care of me. And as we progress through midlife, things change quite a bit as we go through midlife. And it starts with perimenopause, then children, and a new job. And we're so inundated with a lot of things around us that we don't think about. Now, suddenly, why doesn't it work? Because we're lost the self-care that we had before. And also maybe the joy of just focusing on what we wanted, being really selfish.
You know, a lot of women that I talk to think that they're doing something wrong, right? Like it's bad luck or they're not disciplined enough or they failed in some way. But what you're saying is it's a part of
life getting busier, different responsibilities, there is a component of, lack of self-care or things that we may neglect when it comes to our relationship with ourselves. But it sounds like this is kind of normal for a lot of people. And it is something that we need to stop kind of ignoring and actually understand why this is happening and perhaps come up with strategies to deal with it. Is that how you see it?
Absolutely, because it's so easy to ignore the things that make us feel uncomfortable. It is so easy to just say, maybe tomorrow, not today. Today is not a good day to address this. But it has to be addressed at some point because we want to move forward in life. We want to live a fulfilled midlife or beyond midlife. And we want to have the joy that we used to have way back when things were easy. And it doesn't mean that everything's hard, but I think a lot of women create this bubble of, this is impossible. I can't possibly do that. Why? I could, but now I just can't. Whether they're afraid or they are not curious enough or they don't set boundaries. There's a lot of things why these things happen, but it definitely is something that, and I love our conversation, it needs to be addressed. We need to talk about these things and put them out in the open, because the more we share this, the more women go, oh, hello, yes, of course, I can do this.
So, Heike, why do you think this is so uncomfortable for women? Either they put themselves in that bubble or they kind of refuse to acknowledge or deal with what's happening around them.
I think primarily it is the shame of failing, their own self-worth, that if I fail, I should be ashamed of myself. I should be embarrassed, which is absolutely not the case. Because in my opinion, we never fail. We are experimenting, we're curious, we're going through life and checking out new things, whether they work out or not. It is a different story, and we don't need to measure ourselves on the results thereof. If we do a measure on what we've learned along the way. And if we don't reach the goals and we feel shame, we are also projecting that shame on others, meaning that it reflects back to us. They must be ashamed because I did not reach the goal of running a marathon, or I didn't reach that goal of getting that job. And so this whole shame business, as I like to call it, is really something that needs to be talked about, worked through, and really make sure that women know there is nothing, absolutely nothing to be ashamed about. And do not compare yourself to somebody else who's done similar steps and was successful, because you're not that person. And don't let other people tell you, oh, no, wow, you didn't run the marathon. How's that for you? No, 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 no. We're not doing that.
I love that, because I think that it's true. When we feel shame, we then project that shame onto everyone around us. And we walk around feeling like they are looking at us and, judging us for those things that we feel ashamed about. And it's kind of like we create this echo chamber of the story, the narrative that's in our head. Now, what I notice a lot of women do is they have a tendency to go back to the old routines, to push harder, to pressure themselves more, and kind of put themselves back in the stress that keeps them actually stuck. So why is that the worst thing to do?
First of all, it's the most natural thing to do. It's familiar. We know what has happened. We have done this before. And if we go back to that, we are putting ourselves in a secure and safe environment. We're assuming that this will again work because it has before, and we don't have to learn anything new. We don't have to be afraid of some new strategies, or, oh my God, if this is high intensity workout is blowing up at me. No, it will not. But I think that what we need to look at is really saying, okay, harder is not better anymore. But what is better is what fits our life right now. Really, not even if your heart is set on a high intensity workout, if it fits your life and where you are, more power to you. But most women, I find, in that age bracket are simply getting overwhelmed. And also, a high intensity workout to stick with the workouts also increases cortisol level and stress levels and disrupts the endocrine system. And suddenly you're sitting there and you don't even know what you did, air quotes, wrong, why it's not working. So this is just backfiring from all ends.
I'm so glad you told that story because my sister-in-law, who I'm very close to, so she was doing a lot of high intensity workouts. And she wasn't really getting the results she wanted, even though she was kind of like killing herself over these intense workouts. And, obviously it was very frustrating because it was exhausting. And she was hoping for the outcome that wasn't coming. And we had a chat one day, and she's like, you know what? I started working with someone. She started talking, searching for information. And this is exactly what she learned, that all these high intensity workouts for her in particular were raising her cortisol levels so much that it was causing more stress to her body than the safety that would allow her body to respond, and that was something she didn't know. So one thing, I think the power of information and seeking out, answers to your problems. And in this day and age, when we have AI and we have so many different sources of information, I wonder if that is something that can help us. And I'm going to throw in another question with this, Heike, because I think it's about identity, right? A lot of times it's a struggle between letting go of what is comfortable, what we know, what is familiar, what we've been doing over and over again. And maybe it did work for us for a while. So you're still trying to go back and recoup that, those wins or those successes that you once experienced. So on one hand, the question is, should we rely on perhaps seeking information as a way of dealing with this? And is this really the struggle of letting go of the old version of ourselves?
That has two sides, seeking information. And your example with your sister is something that I would prefer over everything else that I see out there, because we can now go into AI and create our own workout. We just type in whatever we're looking for and boom, we have the workout. But nobody is supporting us in that journey, number one. And number two is oftentimes it's not geared to where we are. We don't know. AI doesn't know how we feel today, doesn't know where our hormone levels are, what stress level we're under. And so you get something very generic. And the other part of that is that we know so much, but we keep questioning ourselves. We keep looking for the next big thing, that this has got to be the gadget that will help me. Oh, this is the diet that's definitely going to do it. Although we have learned throughout the years so many facets. And let me compare this to a squat. If you, in your HIIT workouts, learned how to do a proper squat, you can take that technique with you no matter where you go. You don't have to go into the high intensity workouts, but we keep forgetting the little bits that we're learning along the way, or that we can carry over to the new way we're doing things. And escaping or getting away from that safety that is there, that gives us a false narrative.
Right.
Feeling safe is definitely food, safety, and shelter are definitely some of the things that we all need, we crave. And letting go of that safety net is hard. But I want to encourage women to think about, what do I already know that can help me move forward, and not see that when I'm leaving this little bubble nest and I get out there, I won't see the results I'm hoping for. Things will be different, things will feel different, but that brings me also to, what is the goal that you have then? I had a goal once to be a bodybuilder. I was in a completely different phase in my life. I wanted to build muscles as big as humanly possible, and I thought everybody else around me wanted that too. Well, boy, was I wrong. I was a young trainer, and I did not know. But what I've learned through that phase is helping me now with Pilates, with my strength training, with all the things that I do, because I've gained the knowledge to apply it to what my body needs now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Heike, we've talked a lot about, let's say, working out or, what our body can or cannot do. Give me other examples where this kind of challenge shows up for women, especially in midlife, where, they have outgrown perhaps the old way of doing things. And instead of moving forward, women stay stuck. So, in your experience with women you've worked with, where do you see this showing up and in what way so people can recognize what we're talking about?
And I always phrase this as women start dimming their lights as we go through midlife. And instead of reaching for what you want, aside from your nutrition, aside from your exercise program, we grow. We become more mature. We have learned a lot along the way from the experiences we had, for the things we did. And it's time to actually speak up for what it is that you want, instead of dimming your light, pulling back and saying, oh, this is not for me. I can't do this. I'm not worthy. I shouldn't be wanting that job. I am not smart enough. I've not done this long enough. And oftentimes in our industry, we talk about the imposter syndrome, that we do something along the way. But it's not the case. It's something we can live up to. And I look at this part of realizations through my Spark framework, where I think of an onion. You take an onion and you peel back the layers of an onion. So you take the first layer and you go, oh, what do I really want? Can I really do this? Overcoming the doubts that probably pop up of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, oh my God, why should I? I can't ever do that. And then as you peel back the onions, you get to the deeper layer of your emotions and your feelings, and you will cry a little. And that's why I like my onion example. It is not always happy-go-lucky. It's sometimes hard to peel back the next layer of revealing what you really want. What it is that moves the needle for you now, stepping up for yourself, for your need, and continuing your life being curious.
I want to take this moment to address something that Heike said. She talked about self-trust, and one of the best ways to develop self-trust is to build self-love, to reconnect with yourself. And I created a self-love cheat sheet that helps you do just that. You'll find the link in the show notes. You've mentioned, Heike, the Spark framework. So now I'm curious, right? You're telling me to be curious. I'm curious. Tell me about the Spark framework and how you use that to help women, stop dimming their light or to find, I guess, spark. So tell us about that.
The Spark framework came over all the years, and I've been in the fitness and nutrition industry for 40 years now. And I see where women get stuck. I see when things are not happening. And oftentimes I would say, okay, in a session, I would talk to my client and I say, give me your why. Why do you want this? Why are you doing this? Where are you going to go from here? And everybody rolls their eyes and says, please, not the why again. And so I said, all right, we're addressing this from a slightly different perspective. And that's how Spark was born. We scan, we plan, we take action, encounter our roadblocks, and then finally the K is for keeping momentum. And when you think about that, you really feel stuck, you see your life, you want something different, but most of the time, I know we don't know what we want until we maybe see it or feel it. And when you scan your life and saying, I'm really not happy in my job. Well, you scan why you're not happy. What is your situation? What can you do based on all your experiences? And the scanning part is, I think, for most, like the why part, the hardest part, because you have to go deep. You have to really reveal your inner thoughts and be honest with yourself. And so as you're going through the scanning part, you say, okay, you know what? I have this job and I'd rather want to be a podcaster. I like, great. So what do I need? in the planning phase, what do I need to become a podcaster? What is the skills I need? What trainings do I need? Will I be successful with this? Will it fit with what I'm doing right now? And then you take action. You start your channel, you give it a name, you buy a microphone because you want to have good sound quality. You've already listened to a whole bunch of other podcasts, so you kind of know what the format may be like. And then from there, you're like, okay, I'm taking action. You are doing your first show, and the microphone doesn't work. You try everything, and the microphone doesn't work.
Like me this morning.
Can happen.
Right before we were going on, my camera wasn't working and things weren't working. So yeah, okay. R for roadblocks. I love that.
For roadblock, no matter what we do, we encounter a roadblock in our life. But what do we do with that roadblock? You didn't say, Heike, we're not going to do this interview ever again because my camera didn't work. No, you said, let me see if I can fix this. And in the Spark framework, you can go back and say, you know what? The camera I looked at, probably that was not a good camera. Oh, I didn't have a right connection. Or maybe I need to check in with my internet connection. Oh, you may have found the problem and you go at it again. You're like, okay, first show, let's go record. Everything goes well. And this time you keep momentum because everything worked well. And what I find about the Spark framework is that it's not a do-over, but it's really a path of exploration. Each step of a progress path a goal you want to reach. And you can always go back and say, I didn't want to be a podcaster. I want to be a model. That's more like down my lane.
Yeah.
And you start the same process, but you've learned something along the way. And what I want women to also understand is that these roadblocks are not the end of the world. It is a stumble block. It's a learning process where you can go back and says, okay, how can I do this differently? And you learn.
Yeah. Heike, what I love is this is really the guide to reinvention, right? And you're giving women a step-by-step process to go through it. Because I think what keeps a lot of people stuck is this whole like all or nothing thinking, right? Which is, it's got to be this way or that way, or it's like everything has to be perfect, or I'm not going to do it. And, that kind of attitude of like trying to control things does keep people from the trial and error, from the starting, restarting, from the exploration, which you talk about. So I think that this pattern often shows up when people want to get started on, a new path, or they want to reinvent in some way, especially in midlife. So what are your thoughts about that? And how do you help people overcome it?
Think about your life as in waves. There's, especially in midlife, we're in the in-between spaces that in my thinking leads to gaps and then to traps. So you're in your in-between space and you're really not sure where you're going to go with this, how is this going to go. But the more you doubt yourself, the more you question, the more you try to perfect it, the less momentum you have. And I'm here over at Pursue Your Spark. We're all about taking action. And this kind of behavior leads to inactivity with more self-doubt, with more negative thinking. And so you're in this gap. And the more you think yourself in this gap of, it's not perfect, I never will do this, and let's rework it again. Let's do it again. Oh no, this time it's not. Oh no, let's do it one more time. This time it will work. This will be perfect. Then you're in this trap where you dig in your own hole in your in-between space, and it's almost impossible to dig yourself out after you've given so much and you don't see really a way out of it. Yeah. And the Spark framework is a way to look at it and say, hey, okay, let's wait a minute. Why am I doing this in the first place? What do I get? And Pilates said, this is Pilates, it's not striving for perfection. Pilates strives for the ideal. And I use this for anybody that whatever they do. I'm like, what's the ideal at the moment? What would work the best to actually start seeing momentum? Because without getting the ball rolling, there is no momentum in your health and your life. You will stay stuck and you will lose your self-trust in all of that.
So basically, you're saying get out of the perfection trap and start striving for the ideal, which may look very different from what is perfect.
Oh, absolutely. And it's probably is also very different from what you initially thought you wanted to do.
Right. I love that. You know, Heike, just yesterday, I pulled out a pair of pants. They were like animal print pants, it's spring. So I'm like, let me bring those out. And I hadn't worn them in a really long time. So I put it on and it fit because I have been working out quite a bit in the last couple of months, really dedicated, really trying to kind of, you know, make my body feel stronger, more fit. And I have been succeeding. So the pants that were once tight fit. But my brain, so I fit into the pants, but the thought that came into my brain was, oh, but you were actually thinner than that. So while I am proud of having, gone back, or I don't want to say gone back, but I'm proud that I could fit into pants that were once tight because it makes me feel like I'm making progress. I'm reaching the goals that I've set out for myself and I'm working really hard at it. I'm very dedicated. So I felt good about it for a moment. And then my mind went, oh, but just a couple of years ago, it was not just that it fit, it was kind of like a little bit loose, like it was my size, And so it was regret that came in, like, oh, my body is not where it was a couple of years ago, and it's so much harder to get back there. How do we get out of that regret or trying to, again, go back to that goal thinking?
I think that this is one of the things that people pull out their pants and they're like, I can't fit in this. What am I going to do? What am I doing wrong? And that as we're stopping to go back and moving forward, we look at your health and your strength and what really is your driving force for this.
Yeah.
You want to feel healthier, stronger, because a piece of clothing is a measure of sorts. And I feel that we oftentimes associate, and more power to you because you worked really hard at what you're getting and you got the result. But a lot of people don't, and they feel betrayed by their bodies.
Yeah.
They feel that no matter what I do, and I'm 65 now, my skin is not like it was 10 years ago. I have, the hormone levels have changed, my testosterone and estrogen levels have dropped. So my skin is a lot more, I call it wobbly, but it's a lot less tight and more elastic than it is. And when you see some of my videos, then my clients find this really funny in a good way. They're like, you do Pilates and do you have some rolls there too? You're not completely flat. And I say, well, I'm older and I'm embracing the way I am. That's the way my body is.
Yeah.
And my body is not betraying me because I'm strong. I can do all kinds of things. And they're like, yeah, but I can see myself in you honoring your body, not thinking that your body is letting you down. You instead say, look, how strong I am. Look what I can do with this body. And it was different or is different than back in my ultramarathon running days. And I feel that when we have a measure, it can be a two-sided sword. It can be a good thing, but it can also be frustrating when it doesn't look like you said, but I was thinner.
Yeah.
But what does it say about us? What have we been fed by the fitness and the beauty industry about ourselves, about our self-worth and our bodies?
I love that you are posing that question, Heike, because you're right. My goal isn't to be thinner at all. My goal is actually to build muscle. That was what I'm doing all of this for, is I finally want to have a body that feels strong and I want to build muscle. I want a body that looks very toned and lean. That was my goal. It wasn't to get thinner. But you're right, it is programming, because the thoughts that came into my mind was like, oh, but I was thinner. But that isn't my goal. So I think it's kind of like getting used to training your mind to focus in the right direction and not letting some of these thoughts that sometimes they just come unannounced. You don't intend to think that way, but like you said, it's old programming, it's social media, it's, things you have heard other people say that just show up. And I guess I could have made a choice to give more energy to that thought and feel bad about it, or I could redirect to be like, well, but I'm stronger and look, I have more muscle. And I could have then, which is actually what I did, because I didn't feel bad about it. I was just like, you know what?
Okay.
I'm happy with where I am today. But I do think that, like you said, for me, I got results. So I had something to feel good about. And there are people who don't always get results, and that makes them feel worse, right?
Yeah.
So for someone who may be in that situation where they know what matters, they know what they want, but perhaps they're not able to quite follow through. Because I do believe that effort will result in change. It may not be the change you want. It may not look like how you imagine, but applying yourself and putting effort will move you forward. So my question is for those people that are having difficulty following through, putting it in action. Where do they start? Where do they go?
Definitely, you will not start with willpower, guys. Willpower is not going to power you forward suddenly and keep going, because willpower is just like you explained the in-between spaces. Willpower comes and goes at will whenever it feels like. Sometimes you're more motivated than other times.
I think, Heike, if I'm not mistaken, I think willpower works for less than 2% of the population. I think that's a statistic I remember from like way back when, but it's like that's how, unreliable willpower is.
And so we hear so much about the willpower, and I'm like, please just stop talking about this. This is not working. But what you need is momentum. And how do I get momentum? By, yes, you picked your goal. I want to fit in these pants. I want to get stronger. That's a good goal. That's a great goal, because I'm all about strength. I'm all about being stronger, especially as we get older. And also, more muscle mass is leaner bodies. It is stronger body. It's more functional and has a higher metabolism. But aside from that, when you think about that, so you have your goal, but when you're continuing your journey, and you say, all right, here I am. This is my goal. What will be the thing that I can do now, today, that will move the needle? Not the 6-week workout program. It may work for some people, but it's usually so overwhelming that it's like, oh my God, I now suddenly have to work out for an hour. I suddenly have to do it every day. And it becomes simply overwhelming instead of doable. And I always talk about baby steps when it comes to doing something. And it could be the 3 push-ups on the kitchen counter and the 5 squats while waiting for your coffee to brew. And then I get, but that's like, it feels like not enough. And I say, well, if you keep doing this every day, you will change your strength. You will probably crave more because you will feel better in your body. So taking baby steps, things that bring you joy, or at least you say, oh, I like when my arms are looking lean. I'm a big fan of triceps, and the back of the arm is my favorite muscle group to work.
Oh my God, that is something I am so working on, because that is the slowest to shift for me. Yeah. I hear you. I feel you.
And so it's like, I was like, everybody does triceps that works with me, because we need more tricep strength and it tones our arms. But even if you just do a couple of those, you will strengthen, you will move forward. And then after a while you say, this is really easy. I'm gonna do more of that. You could say, I'm stacking it with a habit I already have. Okay, I'm doing kitchen counter push-ups while I'm waiting for my coffee to brew. I'm doing 10 squats while I'm waiting for the water heater to heat up my tea water, whatever it is. And then you say, oh, what else can I do? Could I just walk around my kitchen counter waiting for the soup to be finished? Sure, I could. So the sky's the limit, and the smaller things are stacked on top of one another with already daily habits like brushing your teeth. You can brush your teeth and do stretches, no problem, but figure out a way where we can put those little things in that finally move the needle, get you to momentum. And when you have that momentum, you can do it. Self-trust is back. You're like, yeah, I can do this. If I can do this, I can do more. I can maybe pick up weights now or whatever it is that somebody wants to do.
So basically, you're saying it's consistency. It's celebrating those small successes and wins so you feel good about it. It's about getting creative with how you're going to do it, and to do all of this with a little bit of fun instead of pressure, which, sounds doable for any of us, right? I love that.
Absolutely. And you don't have to have a gym membership or you get fancy gadgets, and just go small. Think about how amazing you feel when you go, hey, look at my triceps, since we're speaking about them. And it's also back when I was a young trainer and I discovered all these muscles. And I came home to my first husband and I said, look, touch my arm. And he said, what am I looking for? I'm like, feel, I finally got muscles. And he was so proud of myself, even though he didn't. It's like, okay, why is she so crazy about it? But this is the first time I really realized that I have muscles that I can strengthen.
Oh my God, I had the same moment, Heike, like where I was parading in front of my husband and my children and being like, look at my muscles, look at my muscles. So, that's a moment I think all of us really feel good about. So thank you for sharing that. I think, Heike, this is such a perfect ending to our conversation, that this is really about celebrating yourself and, looking forward and momentum. And you gave us a lot of great tips on how to get out of that stuck. Your Spark framework, a lot of different things you said really resonated. So thank you so much for this conversation. Now, as with all my guests, Heike, I ask them, what is your Project Loving Myself mantra or message that you'd like to share with our listeners? Is there something that, comes to mind there?
All you need is already within you.
That landed straight in my heart, and I hope that it resonated with all of you as well. Heike, how do people find your book, reach you, follow you? Please share.
So now I am all over social media, but I'm primarily hanging out on Instagram, LinkedIn, and on YouTube and on Substack. And you can find me with Heike Yates, HeikeYates. And my book can be bought anywhere books are sold, like literally anywhere. And it's in softcover. It is an ebook, and it's also an audiobook for those women who like to be active when listening to a book. Like I fold my laundry and I listen to a book. That's where you can find me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Heike, for being with me today.
My pleasure, Sanjay.
If what used to work isn't working anymore, it's not because you're failing. It's because you're changing. And your life now, it just needs something different. So maybe this isn't about pushing harder. Maybe it's about pausing and being honest about what actually fits you now. Because growth doesn't always look like doing more. Sometimes it looks like doing things differently. As Abraham Maslow said, in any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or step back into safety. I love this quote because it's so about our conversation today. And maybe this is one of those moments, not to go back to what's familiar, but to choose what's right for who you're becoming and what you truly want today, not yesterday. If this spoke to you, share this episode with someone who needs to hear this. Follow Project Loving Myself and connect with me at Sanaya Gurnamal on all channels. I do hang out on Instagram and YouTube, probably most of the time. Until next time, you are loved.